everybody makes mistakes. Even the Doctor, who at least has a time machine and infinite regenerations with which to make amends. In the high-pressure world of television production, however, there's never enough time and never enough money, as the constant grind to get something up on screen supersedes any concerns over how that thing will look or how poor the script is. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with 10 times Doctor Who made obvious mistakes. Number 10. The 12th Doctor's time slot. The Capaldi era would have likely done far better in the Sunday evening slot occupied by Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor. The issue with the 8 PM, sometimes 8:30 PM Saturday evening time slot for Peter Capaldi's episodes was that it was too late, designed to sit between Strictly Come Dancing and the subsequent results show. However, younger kids were being put to bed by the time the theme tune kicked in, while the older kids who grew up with Matt Smith's Doctor were out drinking cider on park benches. Worse still, the constant shuffling of start times only served to confuse those who stayed at home. If the Capaldi era had aired on a Sunday evening after Country File, however, it would have had a far more captive audience. In an era where pop culture juggernaut shows no longer air on Saturday tea time, instead preferring slots like Sunday, like House of the Dragon or The Last of Us, or Friday, like Star Trek Picard, maybe Doctor Who doesn't sit comfortably on a Saturday night anymore. It's not a hospital soap like Casualty, nor is it a glitzy light entertainment show. It's a prestige family sci-fi drama that might be better placed elsewhere in the week. Number 9. The Dalek voices in Day of the Daleks. When Day of the Daleks aired in January 1972, it had been 5 years since the last Dalek story, The Evil of the Daleks. In an age where repeat screenings were rare and VHS, DVD, Blu-ray and streaming services were non-existent, it's no surprise that voice actors Oliver Gilbert and Peter Messerlin struggled to convincingly replicate the voices for this classic Third Doctor serial. However, it's not really Gilbert or Messerlin's fault, as the original Dalek voice actors were all still working when Day of the Daleks went into production. It's unclear why producer Barry Letts or director Paul Bernard didn't hire old pros like Roy Skelton, David Graham or Peter Hawkins to reprise their roles, but on reflection, that's precisely what they should have done. This mistake led to the Daleks sounding quite shrill and unthreatening, made worse by the small number of Daleks revealed on screen.
You have obtained the space-time coordinates.
But on the plus side, Day of the Daleks is a classic in spite of this casting mistake and paltry Dalek count. It's essentially Terminator with Daleks, and both Terrence Dick's novelization and the 2011 CGI update of the story shows off its full glory. And of course, Nicholas Briggs steps in to record the new Dalek voices for that 2011 update. Number 8. Shooting the Battle of Ranskoor Av Kolos's first draft. In a 2022 interview with Doctor Who magazine, Chris Chibnall revealed that Jodie Whittaker's first series finale, The Battle of Ranskoor Av Kolos, was a first draft script that didn't feel enough like a finale. He's not wrong either. The whole plot of Tim Shaw attempting to use his planet smasher against Earth should have felt much more epic than it ultimately did. Having spent time introducing Yaz's family in previous episodes, it would have made sense to cut back to them watching in horror as Tim Shaw's plan was carried out. Instead, there was an overhead shot of a CGI Earth looking mildly scuffed from some sci-fi energy rays. Chibnall stated that he had to work on rewriting the scripts of other Series 11 writers, which led to delays in redrafting the finale. It's a shame because there's genuinely a decent story at the heart of the Battle of Ranskoor Av Kolos. No, honestly, there is. It's a story about how travelling with the Doctor has helped Graham to move on from his grief, as he chooses to let Tim Shaw live rather than executing the toothy villain for causing Grace's death. Another rewrite could have developed that further and excised the more extraneous sci-fi archetypes that clutter up the episode. Also, they could have chosen a title that was easier to pronounce. Just saying. Number 7. The Trial of a Time Lord. There's an admirable degree of showmanship in John Nathan Turner's decision to respond to the BBC's declining opinion of Doctor Who by putting the Doctor on trial. However, there's also a fundamental flaw in that plan, which is that it required viewers to sign on for a 14-week serial that had a fairly nonsensical plot due to the numerous behind-the-scenes issues that plagued the writing process. BBC One controller Michael Grade definitely set John Nathan Turner up to fail by claiming that the show was cheap, but refusing to increase its budget. Still, ever the excellent producer John Nathan Turner managed to do some incredible things to make the show look a little bit better. The flyby of the Gallifreyan space station is a fantastic opening sequence, but it rapidly falls back into the cheap nastiness that Grade had previously singled out. Colin Baker has softened slightly, but then a grotesquely miserable story like Mind Warp appears, which shows the Doctor being appalling to PERI. Yes, we know that the footage has been manipulated by the Valiard, but the issue remains that those who had been turned off Doctor Who by the grisliness of the Doctor throttling PERI in the Twin Dilemma, more on that one later, wouldn't be keen to carry on watching when they see him chain her to a rock. Number 6. The New Paradigm Daleks. You have to admire Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss for trying something new with Victory of the Daleks. Introducing a whole new class of colour-coded pepper pots with foreboding-sounding roles feels like the perfect way to reinvigorate a decades-old scary monster for a new generation. But then these multicoloured Duplo-style Daleks come rolling out of the dry ice to face off against Matt Smith's 11th Doctor. Extermin, oh my god, what is that? The BBC admirably stuck by its big plasticky Daleks, giving them a Radio Times cover and promoting them as a new generation. However, it was very quickly agreed that a mistake had been made. In a commentary with Dalek aficionados Nicholas Briggs and Barnaby Edwards, Mark Gatiss noted that he didn't like the new shape of the Daleks, particularly the strange hump on their backs. Moffat clearly agreed as he quickly reverted to the bronze RTD era Daleks, stating that the Paradigm Daleks were the officer class. Which sounds like a wibbly-wobbly rightly white lie to cover the fact that they'd spent a lot of money on a Dalek design that broke with the iconic silhouette. Next time, maybe don't design your Daleks with the sole purpose of making them look lickable. Seriously, that was Moffat's note to the design department. He wanted kids to want to lick them. Madness! Madness, I tell you! Number 5. Shooting almost an entire Doctor Who story on green screen. Now that Doctor Who is about to be a global smash on Disney+, it has access to the virtual screens used by productions such as The Mandalorian. It's speculated that this technology will be used to realise Ncuti Gatwa's impossible new TARDIS set, but that remains to be seen. Whatever the truth and whatever the result, it can't be any worse than what fans got with the 1978 serial Underworld. Underworld has the dubious honour of being the Tom Baker serial that is the worst regarded. One of the reasons for this, aside from the naff sci-fi retelling of Greek mythology, is that many of the locations are realised using colour separation overlay. Essentially, Tom Baker, Louise Jameson and the guest cast performed their scenes in front of a big green sheet. This wasn't some bold attempt at pushing Doctor Who into the future of virtual sets, however. The construction of the Minyan ship set, one of the few physical locations in the story, was so expensive that they had to cut costs. So, 1970s Doctor Who was forced to push its love of green screen to the very limit. Number 4. Putting Dalek Sec on the Radio Times. Russell T Davies is unquestionably modern Doctor Who's greatest showman, and he knows how to put the show into the spotlight. However, RTD is just as capable of making mistakes as those before and after him, and one of his biggest errors was revealing the Dalek Sec human hybrid before it was introduced in the cliffhanger of Daleks in Manhattan. Worse than the massive spoiler, the artfully shot cover photo on the Radio Times looked amazing. Sec was a glistening and horrific fusion of Khaled mutant and human face cast in half light and looking utterly terrifying. The on-screen representation in Daleks in Manhattan really didn't have any of the menace of that Radio Times picture. The moving tentacles looked ridiculous, while the rasping American accent didn't contain any of the wickedness of the iconic Davros. The Radio Times cover was a huge mistake because it raised expectations and promised something the show didn't deliver. It's hardly surprising that after this unloved attempt at a new Dalek mouthpiece, RTD brought back Davros for the next series. Number 3. The 6th Doctor throttling PERI. After the beige coat and cricket whites of the 5th Doctor, it was a sharp contrast to have the bombastic Technicolor 6th Doctor replace him. As actor Colin Baker had come from cruel, villainous roles in BBC shows like The Road to Freedom and Brothers, it was a smart casting coup to subvert expectations of who could play one of the best hero roles on TV. However, his first serial, The Twin Dilemma, skewed far too much toward the villainy and arrogance that Baker had played in other roles. Now, being snarky to Peri was nothing new. The Fifth Doctor used to treat Adric and Tegan similarly, but was clearly too scared to have a pop at Turlough after he once tried to brain him with a rock. However, it's when the Sixth Doctor turns on Peri and chokes her on the floor of the TARDIS that it becomes clear that this abrasive Doctor has already gone too far. The Doctor is almost immediately repentant for his actions, deciding to exile himself to a barren planet, but the damage is already done. The Sixth Doctor struggled to escape the shadow cast by the mistakes made in the Twin Dilemma, making it hard for his era to communicate that he was a reassuring presence in an increasingly dark and violent Doctor Who universe. Number 2. The 13th Doctor having 3 companions. For something as historic as Doctor Who's first female Doctor, it felt counterintuitive to lumber her with 3 companions. No disrespect to Bradley Walsh, Tosin Cole or Mandip Gill, who were all excellent, but one of them would have sufficed. It was clear from the developing relationship between the 13th Doctor and Yaz, the touching way that she stands up for Ryan's dad, or in the comedy partnership between her and Graham, that the perfect pairing was in there somewhere. The 3 companion lineup worked for the first Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Susan, because the Doctor was an older man, so Ian could do the fighting, Barbara was the brains, and Susan was the audience surrogate. Plus, classic Who serials were way longer than modern Who episodes, allowing more time for each companion to get their due. That said, the Peter Davison era had already proved that a young Doctor with a large group of companions didn't work, which is why they're still scraping Adric off the surface of prehistoric Earth. Having so many companions in Jodie Whittaker's first series, interacting in a cramped and unwieldy TARDIS set, meant that she struggled to shine. Again, no fault of Whittaker, but when writers are trying to give 4 characters substantial material in an hour of television, it's inevitable that some will get shortchanged. Shortchanging the title character, however, is a major mistake. Number 1. The Nightmare in Silver Cybermen. While running zombies have become slightly more acceptable in the years following 28 Days Later, the sprinting Cybermen of Neil Gaiman's difficult second Doctor Who episode haven't. The design is sleek and therefore feels slightly more like there are cybernetically augmented human remains housed within. However, the decision to make the Nightmare in Silver Cybermen infinitely adaptable was a step too far. They felt like machines learning how to respond to threats rather than the cold, logical cyborgs that were first created in 1966. The horror of the Cybermen is that there's a person inside each one whose personality and emotions have been stripped away from them. They're augmented by all manner of horrifying cyber attachments, and there's a reason for that teardrop design on their eyes. It's telling that after introducing these comic book robot warriors, Stephen Moffat went on to write 2 of the most horrific Cybermen stories ever told. Darkwater and Death in Heaven has the Cybermen offer a cure for death itself, while World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls mutilated the Doctor's companion into cyber form and had her remain conscious of her fate after the procedure. After all the body horror, Gaiman's cyber sprinters now feel like a distant, unwanted memory. And that concludes our list. If you can think of any other examples, then do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Who Culture video ever again. Also, head over to Twitter and Instagram to follow us there. I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.